Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends guys, welcome back to our /PettyRevenge, where people get taught lessons they won't forget. And in today's episode, we've got nasty Karens yelling at toddlers, throwing tantrums in grocery stores, trying to get coworkers fired. Oh my goodness. Guys, I hope you enjoy the hilarious stories today. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This happened last summer. I was at the state fair looking at the butter sculpture. This old dude is standing next to me recording it as it spins around because the sculpture had two different sides to it. That's when this little girl, maybe 3 years old if I had to guess, runs up to it, and she presses her face and hands against the glass, all excited. Now I laughed because I found it cute. I remember being young and that excited for silly things, but the old dude next to me immediately starts bitching. The guy specifically said, "Jesus Christ, get out of the way." He then mumbles something about people's kids. And keep in mind, this girl is not even tall enough to mess with his precious video. If anything, he should have been happy to catch a genuine state fair moment. But no, apparently in his mind, the guy deserves to get a completely uninterrupted video. The mom, of course, awkwardly apologizes and she pulls her daughter back. I was immediately effing livid though. As soon as it got to the point that the butter sculpture was turning to the side he hadn't recorded, I slowly walked in front of him and past his camera so that I blocked all the important stuff. As I was walking away, the guy says to me, "You're a real a-hole, you know that?" And that's when I shot back with, "Dude, what does that make you? You yelled at a little girl because you need your video that bad." The guy starts huffing and puffing, and he goes, "Well, you're still a big a-hole." At that, I just laughed, and I kept walking away at that point. I made eye contact with the mom before I left though, and she had a huge smile on her face. She gave me a nod, and she mouthed, "Thank you." It was one of the most satisfying moments of my life, honestly. Heck, yes, and honestly, I think I would have done the same. And thank goodness OP said something to that old man, because people who yell at kids in public for being kids and try to make them feel bad, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, the girl was 3 years old, and literally everything they see at that age is the first time ever, so let her get excited over a butter sculpture. In my books, OP's a good human, and I would have paid money just to have them walk right back through the guy's video again. And this person says it best, he acted like that for a butter statue. A butter statue. Why do we have to share the same planet as these people? So I'm a 40-year-old male, and my almost 4-year-old daughter loves grocery shopping with me, especially if we get one of those race car grocery carts. If it's a slow time at the store, I take her to the deli, where there's a wide open space in the corner, and I spin a circle with the cart. She absolutely loves it. It usually gathers smiles in the rare case that someone's nearby. Just a dad having fun with his daughter, right? Well, yesterday, after doing a single spin, we went on our way when an older lady, who I'd say was early 70s, comes towards us, and the woman shaking her head and glaring at us. I gave her a perplexed look in response to her scowl, and she mutters something about having no respect for public places. I responded, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just having fun with my child. I'm sorry to have offended you. Have a nice day." Now I thought that was that, and I was happy to move on, but the woman continues. The woman starts giving me a hard time, and she says, "Shame on you for teaching your child such poor manners. I taught my children how to behave in public." Hearing her say that, I respond, "Well, clearly that's a lesson you didn't bother to learn yourself. I wonder how well they turned out." She then mutters something about them being perfect. And here's another thing. My almost 4-year-old is extremely perceptive and sensitive, and she asked if she'd done something wrong. I then explained as loudly as I could, "Absolutely not, honey. That's just a very grumpy old bully." Hearing me say that, she angrily responds, "I am not grumpy. I just want to be left alone." Me, with a stern face, say, no? Well, you certainly are a bully then, and if you want to be left alone, I strongly suggest you start minding your own business. You taught your children how to behave in stores, so I'm teaching mine to stand up to bullies like you. Thank you for this perfect teaching moment. The woman finally caught the hint to shut her trap, and she moved along, still muttering and shaking her head. The petty revenge commences. Twice more, we encounter her in the other aisles, and I make sure to overdo the race car theme, making vrooming noises. But I would abruptly stop when we got near her and saw her glaring. I would then say loudly to my daughter, "Careful now, honey, we don't want to anger the fun police." My daughter played along perfectly. As fate would have it, we were approaching the checkout at nearly the same time. We got there first, but I allowed Karen in front of us just to be first in line at the solitary man checkout, knowing that that woman would complain, and she didn't disappoint. She immediately starts to explain to the till person that I was ramming the car into things and trying to hit people while racing down the aisles, that she was being harassed by me and my daughter this whole time, and how we were disrupting the whole store. The till lady just cautiously looked over at me, and I just gave her a totally confused shrug. I'm still in my formal work clothes, which was suit and tie, and my daughter is wearing her adorable poofy fairy skirt. Picture perfect innocence. Having seen me let the lady in front of us in line, the till person gives me an apologetic smile and just nodded and smiled, humoring Karen. She must have tried complaining further at customer service, because we were now leaving at the same time, despite our full grocery cart and a child insisting on helping with the bagging. Once outside, I made sure to drag race that cart right past Karen as loudly and as obnoxiously as I could, and my daughter just squeals in delight. I didn't even bother looking back at that crusty old woman. She ruined my shopping outing, and I hope I ruined her entire day. I do feel bad for people that are this desperately miserable, but I also have zero patience for them taking it out on other people who are just trying to enjoy a sliver of joy in their day. I think if enough of us consistently confront people like this, they might just learn to keep their mouths shut and their poor attitude to themselves. Well said, OP. And as a person who's pushed my young nieces and nephews in those carts before at Home Depot, also making random brooming noises, I just want to say that I personally don't believe there's anything wrong with that. Like, if a person isn't crashing into things and disrupting people while they're shopping, in my opinion, it's fair game. And if OP likes to drift circles in an open area of a grocery store, giving his daughter the time of her life, why not let them be, right? Also, I just want to say, if that Karen wanted to be left alone, I agree with OP when they say she should have minded her own business. And while we're on the topic of minding your own business, the next post, OP gets really petty to teach her dad a lesson. You guys won't want to miss this one. Okay, so my dad, who's 57 years old, recently started dating this woman named Becky, who's 25 years old, 4 months ago. And just for reference, I'm a 26-year-old, and my dad and mom, who's 54 years old, divorced when I was 24, and this is his first relationship since mom and dad separated. My dad's become the rich man dating young bimbo D-bag, and it's made my mom feel like yesterday's trash. Him and Becky have such an obvious transactional relationship that it's been making me question how he sees women. It's actually got me thinking, was he checking out my friends growing up? Is that something I have to worry about now? F you. Now, I've tried expressing to him that their relationship makes me uncomfortable for every obvious effing reason, but the guy won't listen, and I'm so tired of his blatant disrespect and dismissal of my feelings. So if he sees no issue with it, then I guess neither do I. That said, this weekend was Becky's birthday, and my dad throws a massive garden party for it with her bimbo friends, plus his friends and his business partners. I'm actually sure that this is so he could try to get his creepy buddies set up with her gold-digging friends. But you know what? Since that was the vibe, why wouldn't I join in on the fun? So what did I do? I found myself an older man who's a guy I work with, and decided to bring him as my +1. And you may be asking, how old is he? Well, the guy's 62 years old, so let's call him Old Joe. It's only fitting, if Dad's girlfriend's younger than me, that my new boyfriend be older than him. So the party starts, and I'm on my best behavior with him and all of his friends, acting like I support it all, when I go leave to get my new boyfriend because he just arrived. And it was honestly art coming back up to him and all of his friends sitting together at the main table. The birthday girl was basically hanging all over him, and that's when I walk up, arm-linked, to introduce them all to my old boyfriend. I wish I took a photo of their faces. And to make things better, old Joe sits down and I sit right on his lap. I made sure to be just as shameless as my dad's new girlfriend. I had my arm around him, hugging him, and it was so effing worth it to watch my dad silently sit there in anger. I knew his day was ruined. Like, I can't express how satisfying it was to watch him fume from across the table. But what was he going to say? And here's the best part. One of his partners even knew old Joe. They were golfing buddies. Before Dad could say anything to me, I made my exit with old Joe, loudly announcing that he was taking me on a private boat ride and we don't want to miss our port departure. Dad, of course, called me non-stop and I just kept sending him to voicemail, though I did text him asking what ED medication he takes, so I could recommend the brand to old Joe. At this point, I don't care how it affects our relationship because I'm absolutely disgusted with my dad and his choices. I'm satisfied with the payback and I hope he likes the taste of his own medicine. Well, that's one way to traumatize your father. Date a man who's older than he is. But I'm sure since Dad's partner's golfing buddies with old Joe, it'll come out sooner or later that Opie's not in a relationship with him and Dad can sleep soundly again. And listen guys, although large age gaps are often frowned upon, as long as both people are happy and okay with it, let them be, right? People will live their lives how they want. Guys, let me know if you agree or disagree with what OP did. This person shares their comment and they say, my dad, who's in his late 40s, used to say that he would trade my stepmother, who's in her 40s, for two 20-year-old girls. She responded by saying, great idea. Throw a party and your daughters, who are 20, can invite their friends and you invite yours, so your daughters can choose a boyfriend too. That shut him up really fast. So I work as a software engineer, and in my team, we follow the usual process of writing code, reviewing it, testing it, and deploying it. That said, one of my coworkers, Steve, has this habit of taking credit for other people's work in front of management. The guy's not a bad developer, but he loves making it seem like he was doing more than he actually was. Now, I'm quite introverted, so I usually don't speak up in meetings unless I have to, and calling someone out directly doesn't come naturally to me, so I usually let things slide. So during a big project, I spent days fixing a complicated problem. The problem ran deep, and the fix had to work across different parts of the code. If you hadn't actually worked on it, it was pretty hard to follow. After a lot of testing and many frustrating hours, I finally got it done. Well, at the next team meeting, before I could even say a word, Steve jumps in and he starts explaining my fix as if it was his. He kept saying things like, I decided to, and my approach was to, making it sound like he was the person behind it. I was annoyed, but I kept quiet. The next day, another bug pops up in the same area of the code. That's when our manager turned to Steve, and the manager says, since you worked on this, can you patch it? And that's when the fun started. Steve froze, and the thing is, if you didn't actually write the fix, it wasn't easy to understand how it all fit together. Poor Steve had no idea where to even begin. He even tried stalling and even sent me a message asking if I could explain the logic of the code real quick. I told him I was busy at the moment and I'll catch up with him later on. I didn't. After 5 hours of struggling, he finally admits in the team chat. He wrote something like, actually, I didn't write this part, maybe OP can take a look. I replied, of course, I'll check it. 10 minutes later, I had it fixed. That's when our manager comes over and congratulates me. He caught on with what Steve did, and we were chatting for a bit. And before heading off, he made a deliberate comment about how great it was having someone who actually understands what we're working on. Steve didn't say a single word. F you, Steve. Nothing more satisfying than putting a coworker like that on the spot and embarrassing them, right? He totally deserved it. And here's a question. How many of you would have denied helping Steve when asked to take a look at the code? I know my answer would have definitely been, sorry dude, boss said it was your job. Let the guy sweat a bit more. Like, if he's taking credit, might as well let him have the whole thing. But yeah, shame on that a-hole for trying to make himself look better in front of upper management by taking credit for people's work. And it does suck when some people don't speak up about it and let it happen. This person comments, please start speaking up. Being introverted, it is difficult. But I found that if you have a few practice sentence openers, it helps you get used to speaking. Things like, actually, when I wrote the code, I found, or thanks Steve, but in terms of blah blah blah, etc. Keep practicing and you'll see a huge difference. I'm just glad to see that the manager gave OP recognition in the end and realized that Steve wasn't all he was saying he was. And guys, if you think that Steve was a bad coworker, this next post that OP shares, oh man, it's a wild one. So I'm actually kind of floored that I've forgotten about this, but my memory got jogged while going through these stories. I worked in emergency radiology in the early 2000s. The overwhelming majority of our film developing back then was done using daylight processors. This was pre-digital radiography, but the occasion would still arise every now and then where you would need to hit a dark room to develop your radiographs. The dark rooms were fairly cramped, loud, nearly made you dizzy with chemical odor, were hot and muggy, and almost entirely dark except for a blazing red safe light in the corner, just so we could see what the heck we were doing. Our countertops were kept clean, but the majority of the room was usually pretty busted, especially the ER dark room. So that said, too many damn times I would rotate around the revolving door from the trauma hall to that particular dark room, and I would be mere inches away from hospital staff half naked going at it. I should also add that revolving darkroom doors do not lock at all. I was almost always carrying a highly time-sensitive film anytime I did hit a dark room, so the offending pervs were guaranteed a masterclass in profanity, while they hastily threw themselves together and ran like hell. Hospital staff doing that with each other is more common than you'd think, so I'd just get pissed for a minute or two and then dive back into my work. There's no time for love, Dr. Jones. All that said, I had a repeat offender who was actually an ER nurse. This Karen had the nerve to go to my supervisor post-coitus, as this was the number 3 time I caught her, and get me reamed out because I, quote, on purpose interrupted a private confidential conversation. Now this Karen was so mad that I caught her that she was trying to lie to get me fired. Thankfully, my supervisor laughed her out of the office because dear nurse C-word had no reason nor authorization to be in the dark room, period. Nothing came of it, but ever since then, I was gunning for that woman from that point on. It took almost a year to nail her, but boy did I ever. I happened upon the Karen one last time in my dark room. I quickly grabbed her scrub pants, which were right by the revolving door entrance, and I whipped right back out the revolving door again. I presented the now neatly folded scrub pants to the ER nursing supervisor moments later, making sure the badge pull on her waistband was turned over to showcase the hussy smiling face and name. I then pointed the supervisor down the hallway to trauma and told them that Nurse Naughty Bits was in the dark room and she was requesting the super bring her these pants. Hearing me tell her that, the nursing supervisor briefly looked at me like I had grown another head, but she turns on her heels and she hightails it down the hall to the dark room. I never saw Karen, the registered nurse, again after that night. The married respiratory therapist that she was having fun with that particular time was also fired. I wish I would have had time to stay and watch the fireworks because it was apparently rather brutal, but I was already hauling ass to the main department darkroom to get my film developed, while Nurse Karen was basically embarrassed in front of the entire ER on a busy weekend. Jeez Louise, was that ever quite the tale or what, guys? And in a trauma dark room, nonetheless, where time is of the essence. Like, clearly some people don't give a crap at all. That said though, super satisfying and petty. Like, just the thought of knowing that OP grabbed Karen's scrubs and marched them out to the supervisor. Oh my goodness, I got secondhand embarrassment just reading that. Like, what would the excuse be, right? I can't imagine how Karen and the married respiratory therapist felt in that moment. So every year, the company I work for has a huge fundraising campaign. They solicit from all employees to voluntarily contribute towards charities directly from their paycheck, pre-tax. You're encouraged and very heavily pressured to donate to pre-selected charities of their choice. They also offer options to donate smaller amounts per month for the year, or one lump sum. Just think lots of email reminders and signage all over company walls. And the perk is having your name entered for prize drawings, which didn't matter because the prizes were always won by company executives and leadership. The company had running totals for departments of how many people were contributing. They wanted 100% participation from all departments. It was supposed to be private and anonymous and only show numbers. I quickly learned it wasn't as anonymous or voluntary as advised. If one or two people were holding back, they were usually approached by this administrator and pressured to donate. What's really strange is the administrator of my department at the time, who was usually very stoic and stern, became giddy about this charity campaign. It was weird and it raised alarms. One year, I was struggling so hard that I wasn't going to contribute. I was so broke, but here comes admin lady into the office suite. The woman claps and she's giddy and she squeals, "We are almost to 100% participation." She then looks around and starts to question each person. She was eyeballing me the whole time, trying to subtly make her way to me. She then gets to my desk and she says to me, "Have you made your contribution yet?" Without thinking, I should have told her it was personal, but I told her I was still considering which charity. She then pulls a chair to my desk with a sob story from one of the charities and how the money helps those in need. She then asked me to pull up the charity website and she literally walks me through each charity entering my contribution. So as a good little young naive worker, I did what I was basically being forced to do, and I contributed a minimal donation on my measly salary. I made our department reach 100% participation. Who cares, right? The next year, I purposely waited until the last second to make my contribution, to see if I got the same one-on-one chat with the admin lady. Sure enough, she comes with the same sob story that she's memorized, and she would baby talk me through making my contribution while she watched. I soon became her target to get rid of. She was out for my job, so she separated me from the people I got along well with, including my direct boss, and made me report directly to her. I knew I had to get out of there quickly or else I'd lose my job. So I applied for positions and I wound up transferring to another department within a few weeks. It ends up being an amazing move and one of my favorite positions to date. In this new department, they organized and ran multiple company, city, and county-wide events, one of the biggest being the charity campaign for the whole company. That's when I brought up to my new coworkers how incredibly weird my previous admin lady was at that time of the year. And that's when they said, of course, she wanted 100% participation, because admins get a bonus when their departments are 100% participation. And you can bet your sweet rear ends that I start telling everyone in my previous department about that little tidbit. The next year, that department had one of the lowest participation efforts. Being that I was in a better place in life and actually liked my new department and leadership, I began to willingly contribute because the new admin would take that bonus and they would buy everyone lunch or some form of thanks. I just love that OP rounded up all the people in their old department to ruin that admin's bonus. And seriously, what type of company is that, forcing people to make donations? Like, you know for sure that it's a ploy to get their employees to donate to charities so the company itself can get tax breaks from the government. At least that's what I think. And like Opie said, you never know what people's financial situation is, so them basically being forced to donate money definitely doesn't sit right with me. I only wish Opie said, hey, if you guys gave me a substantial raise, I'd be able to afford it. So my 35-year-old sister started dating one of those brutally honest guys a few months ago. The guy can be quite rude, and he'll make backhanded comments about me and the family sometimes, which is bothersome. But my sister says he's not malicious, he's just brutally honest all the time, and we should get used to it. So I visited my parents' house to celebrate my sister's birthday, and my husband couldn't come with me because he was busy. After the party, we all sat down for dinner, and that's when my sister's boyfriend says out loud that it was weird that my husband and I don't have kids, despite being married for 6 years. Now, I was shocked that he brought this up, but I gave a short answer, stating it's because of infertility issues. He then asked again out loud which side. Which one of you are the problem? Is it eggs or sperm? Of course, I didn't want to answer, but my sister quickly said it's my side. Now that made me super uncomfortable, as he looked at me for a second and said that maybe not having kids now is a good thing, because women over 30 might, quote, produce defective babies due to age. I told him it's none of his business, and that's when he says, well, I'm just giving an honest opinion, that's all. So I in return told him while maintaining eye contact, trust me, if I wanted an a-hole's opinion, I would have farted. Literally everyone at the table just burst into laughter, and my sister and her boyfriend were stunned. A few seconds later, her boyfriend excuses himself out, and my sister followed and then sent me text after text saying I was mean and disrespectful towards her boyfriend, and how dare I insult him maliciously just because he stated his honest opinion. She also said I ruined her birthday by being petty and making her boyfriend the joke of the night in front of the whole family. I didn't respond, but she demands an apology via mail as soon as possible. My mom agreed that I shouldn't have said what I said, that I should have ignored him knowing how he is. I think I'm the a-hole, but I'm not sure. Guys, I have no idea how OP's family members think OP's the a-hole in this situation. Like, is it the fact that she openly embarrassed a guest or what? Like, I'm not comparing what was being said, but in my opinion, what he said to OP and about OP out loud in front of everyone was so much worse than what she said to him, right? Like, infertility is such a super sensitive subject for people, and being put on the spot by a jerk and being asked, oh, which one of you is the problem, in front of a crowd of people is effing disrespectful. He's lucky that all he got was that mind your own business comment. Like, the guy can dish it, but he can't take a harmless comment like that. What a frickin' baby. And seriously, OP should have mic dropped one last comment at the table and said, well, I'm just giving my honest opinion about you, and then walked out. Guys, let me know your thoughts though. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode where bad bosses are getting absolutely destroyed. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.